Yeah.
Now, the Prime Minister has confirmed the next general election will be in 2024. Well, what a shock. But it has at least ruled out the prospect of a January 2025 contest. I mean, we knew it would be next year. We're just not quite sure which part of the year.
Whether it's May, June or October, November. It probably won't be November because there's an American election in November.
So, are the Conservative Party ready for an election? Polls are suggesting that they remain way behind the Labour Party.
Well, let's talk to our great friend of this programme, of course, Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Tory MP for North East Somerset, who, of course, has a very fine show on GB News. Jacob, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Have the Tories ever been so badly ill-prepared for a poll at this late stage, Jacob? Does it feel like 1996 to you when the Tories were miles behind a young Labour leader called Tony Blair and went down to a huge defeat?
No, though the polling is not encouraging at the moment. We were in a worse position in May of 2019, when you will recall in those European elections we got the worst result in the whole history of the Conservative Party, and then just a few months later in December won a majority of 80. So there have been times when close to an election we've been worse prepared and gone on to win. But equally, there have been times when we've been low in the polls and we've remained low in the polls. And it's always difficult to know which is the right historic comparison.
So where are you at the moment, Jacob? Are you feeling optimistic that things could be turned around in the next few months, or is the Tory party a bust flush?
Well, I think if you are a candidate in an election, you always have to be optimistic about your chances. I mean, even when I was standing in Central Fife in 1997, the last seat to have returned a communist, I went into the campaign with enthusiasm and vigour, though the chances of winning there were very, very slim. I think if you're planning to be a candidate, as I am, I'm looking forward to standing in North East Somerset and Hanham, a new constituency, you can't go into it with a defeatist mindset. So Tories must be positive.
But do you have the right leader to reinvigorate you, if you like? Because you sound like you're tearing each other apart within government at the moment.
Well, I mean, my views on the removal of Boris are on the record. I thought that was a great mistake. I thought he had the mandate. I thought he had a great connection with British voters, which led to electoral success, and that the Tory party committed an act of self-harm by deposing him. But to change leader now, with under a year to go before the election happens, seems to me would be writing off the election altogether. So Rishi Sunak is the leader we've got. I want to back him, I want to support him, I want him to do well.
How important, Jacob, is it, not just in terms of what happens to our migration policy, but politically, how important is it that the Prime Minister's Rwanda policy actually flies and we start getting planes off the ground? Because if there's no progress there before an election, he's going to have failed on one of his 5 pledges to stop the boats.
Well, it's always important that planes fly. That's their point. So if we're going to have planes, they must fly. I happen to think that legal migration is the bigger problem. Yeah. Because the numbers are so large. 1.4 million net migration in the 2 years to June 2023. That is something that's easier for the government to control. It doesn't require primary legislation. It doesn't bash up against human rights. But stopping the boats has become totemic. So it is really important that he pushes through and starts getting people to Rwanda.
Was it the wrong slogan, though? Was it a slogan that was never going to fly?
Well, I've always thought that slogans should follow policy rather than policy following slogan. And if you set a slogan and then try and develop the policy around it, you can easily be hoisted by your own petard.
Can we ask you on one other subject, Jacob? Keir Starmer has given an interview somewhere this morning and he's opened the door, not for the first time, to the idea, he thinks we should be exploring the idea of a free vote on assisted dying. He thinks that this is an area that needs to be looked at. This is, of course, on the back of what Dame Esther Rantzen said this week. I think I know what your position may be on this, but what is your view? We had a vote in the Commons in 2015. There was a vote in the Lords a couple of years ago with Baroness Meach's private member's bill. Is it time to look at it again?
It's a subject that has to be revisited because it's important that the arguments are heard and that there is broad support for the law as it is. So I have no objection to debates in Parliament, and it's now nearly 10 years since the last one, so that's not unreasonable. I think the case against is very strong. Obviously, I'm heavily influenced by being Catholic and the fundamental principle of the sanctity of life. But the practicalities of it are, I think, very, very risky. The thing that concerns me most is elderly people feeling they're a burden either to their family or to the NHS, wanting to shorten lives that they could actually live out contentedly.
But I think it's Dame Esther said when she encouraged MPs to discuss the topic, she said, think of your loved ones who are older, who are unwell. Think how you would wish them to spend their last days and weeks. And being as she has terrible, lung cancer, she's in a good position, isn't she, to take that view?
She's in a good position to raise the issue. I mean, Esther Rantzen has been one of the most effective people at raising issues over her long and distinguished career. There is the question about pain relief, about the hospice movement, about how the hospice movement is funded. And this is tremendously important, that ensuring people have a peaceful life and a pain-free end is something that can be done, rather than thinking that it's cheaper and more efficient, and that people are a burden. People are never a burden. They are valuable individuals and part of their family. And I worry that the elderly will come to see themselves as a burden. And you see where this has been tried in other countries, that the argument's made that it will be for a very small number of those with the most difficult conditions. And then it extends. So both Belgium and Canada are talking about children being eligible for euthanasia. So you start killing children. This seems to me to be terrible.
All right, that's Jacob Rees-Mogg. Jacob, great to talk to you. Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, who has his show here.
Thank you, and happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas
to you and your
much.
family, Jacob. Good to talk to you. Jacob's show is a must-watch, of course, on GB News.